All right, let's talk about workout gear. What if I told you that those leggings, the ones you love, what if those were secretly loaded with harmful chemicals? Kind of takes the shine off that post-workout glow, right?
Ooh.
That's what we're diving into today, PFAS, the so-called forever chemicals that are popping up in all kinds of stuff, including our workout clothes. We've been digging into a whole pile of research and articles, and honestly, it's a lot to process, so we're here to help you make sense of it all. What are PFAS exactly? How worried should we be about them ending up in our clothes? And most importantly, what can we actually do about it?
It's definitely a hot topic right now, and for good reason. PFAS are incredibly persistent, meaning they don't break down easily, not in the environment and not in our bodies, hence the forever chemicals nickname. And the research linking them to some serious health issues is pretty concerning.
Okay, before we get too deep, let's back up for a second. I think we all hear chemicals and our brains immediately go, danger, red alert. But can you break it down for those of us who, aren't chemists? What are PFAS exactly?
Sure. Think of PFAS as like this massive family of man-made chemicals. They've been around since like the 1950s, used in all sorts of things. You've got your nonstick cookware, firefighting foam. Even water-repellent clothing relies on them. They're super useful because they repel both water and oil. They resist heat, and they're incredibly durable.
So, wait, durable is great for, like, a frying pan, right? But maybe not so much when we're talking about something we're wearing right next to our skin all the time.
Exactly. That's where the concern comes in. Because they're so durable, PFAS don't just disappear after we're done with them. They can stick around in the environment and in our bodies for years, even decades. And as they build up, that's where the potential health risks become more serious.
And what are those risks exactly? Lay it on us. How worried should we be about PFAS?
Studies have linked PFAS exposure to a whole range of problems, honestly. Immune deficiency, liver cancer, thyroid issues. There's even research suggesting they can cause developmental problems in children.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty scary list. So how do these PFAS even get into our workout clothes in the first place?
Well, think about the qualities we want in workout gear. Sweat wicking, water repellent, stain resistant. Sound familiar? PFAS happen to be really good at providing those qualities. They're often used in the coatings and treatments that give workout clothes those performance features we love.
So it's almost like we're trading performance for potential health risks.
I wouldn't say it's that straightforward. It's important to remember that the research on PFAS is still ongoing, and we don't have all the answers yet. We don't know exactly how much PFAS exposure from clothing is actually harmful.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating for people who are trying to make informed choices about what they wear. One of the things we've been looking at is this 2022 study by Momovation. They're a group focused on safe products for families. They tested a whole bunch of workout brands, including Lululemon for PFAS, and their findings were, kind of alarming.
Yeah, they found detectable levels of fluorine in one pair of Lululemon leggings. Now, fluorine is often used as a marker for the potential presence of PFAS, but it's important to remember that fluorine doesn't automatically equal a dangerous level of PFAS. It's more like it raises a red flag, a sign that further investigation is needed.
So it's kind of like a smoke alarm going off, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean there's a fire, but it's definitely a sign to start checking things out.
Exactly. And to make things even trickier, testing for PFAS in clothing isn't always straightforward. Different labs use different methods. There's no standardized way to do it yet.
So we can't just look at a label and know for sure if something is PFAS-free or not.
Unfortunately, not yet. There are some brands that are working to eliminate PFAS and being transparent about their processes. But there's no official PFAS-free certification to look for right now.
Okay, so we know PFAS are potentially bad news, and they're turning up in workout clothes. But how much exposure are we really talking about here? Is wearing those leggings once a week actually putting us at risk?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, we don't have a definitive answer. The research on safe levels of PFAS exposure is still going on. There's still a lot we don't know about how PFAS absorb through the skin, especially during exercise when we're sweating.
That makes sense. But here's the thing that's been bugging me. It's not just our workout clothes, right? You mentioned earlier that PFAS are in all kinds of products, so even if I ditch the leggings, I'm probably still getting exposed through other things, right?
That's the tricky part. PFAS are so widespread that exposure is almost unavoidable. They're in our food packaging, nonstick cookware, even our drinking water in some areas.
So it sounds like this is a much bigger issue than just a pair of leggings. It's about our overall exposure to PFAS from multiple sources day after day.
Exactly. It's about cumulative exposure over time. And that's one of the things that makes this so difficult to study and regulate. It really is. It can feel overwhelming, honestly. But the good news is that there are things we can do, even when it feels like this big, scary issue. There are ways to limit our exposure and advocate for change.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. Give us the good stuff. What can we actually do about all of this?
First off, knowledge is power, right? The more you understand about PFAS, where they're found, the better choices you can make.
So where should we even start? Are there good resources out there for learning more about this stuff?
Absolutely. The Environmental Working Group, EWG, they have tons of info on PFAS. They even have a guide to help you choose products that are PFAS-free. And then there's the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, that's ATSDR. They're a good resource too, especially if you want to learn about the health effects of PFAS.
Perfect. We'll make sure to link those in the show notes for everyone listening. But it sounds like even with those resources, finding stuff that's truly PFAS-free can be tricky since there's no official certification yet, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like the Wild West out there in a way. But there are some brands that are doing a good job, like really leading the way and being transparent and getting rid of PFAS. Patagonia is a good example. They've been super open about their efforts to eliminate PFAS from their whole product line.
Well, that's good to hear. Hopefully more companies will follow their lead. But in the meantime, what about the workout clothes we already have? Is there anything we can do to, I don't know, reduce our exposure from those?
Washing your workout clothes frequently can help. It can remove some of the PFAS, but it's not a perfect solution, unfortunately.
Okay, so washing helps, but it's not a magic fix. What about during the workout itself? Any tips there?
Choosing workout clothes made from natural fibers could be a good option, like cotton or bamboo. Those materials are less likely to be treated with PFAS in the first place.
That's interesting. So even within the workout clothes category, there are choices we can make to maybe minimize exposure. But what about like regulations?
Yeah.
Are there any laws that protect us from PFAS in products?
There's definitely been some progress on the regulatory front. Several states like California and Maine have passed laws that ban PFAS in certain products, including textiles.
Oh, wow. So some states are taking action, but it's not nationwide yet.
Right. But at the federal level, the EPA has announced plans to set drinking water standards for PFAS and designate certain PFAS as hazardous substances.
Okay, so it sounds like things are moving maybe slowly, but in the right direction. But we still have a long way to go, right?
It do. But one thing to remember is that consumer pressure can be a powerful force. The more we demand PFAS-free products and hold these companies accountable, the faster we'll see real change.
So it's not just about our individual choices, it's about collective action, right? Using our voices to push for bigger systemic change. What are some specific things our listeners can do if they want to advocate for stricter regulations?
Contacting your elected officials is a great place to start. Let them know you're concerned about PFAS and urge them to support legislation that actually restricts the use of these chemicals and holds polluters accountable.
So make some phone calls, write some emails, make sure our voices are heard.
Exactly. And you can also support organizations that are doing the work, like the Environmental Working Group and Safer States. They're actively pushing for stronger PFAS regulations.
And I imagine voting with our wallets is a big one too. Supporting companies that are actually taking steps to eliminate PFAS, that sends a strong message.
Absolutely. Look for brands that are transparent about how they make their products and committed to using PFAS-free materials. Let's reward the companies that are doing the right thing.
You know, as we've been talking about this, I keep thinking about the emotional side of this whole issue. It's one thing to understand the science, but it's another to deal with the feeling that these chemicals are potentially in so many of the things we use every day.
I hear you. It can be really unsettling, especially when it's something as personal as the clothes we wear. You know, we expect these things to be safe, and when they're not, it does feel like a betrayal of trust.
Exactly. And it's easy to feel powerless or overwhelmed, like, what's the point of even trying?
I get that. But here's the thing. Knowledge and action are powerful tools to fight against feeling helpless.
So instead of getting stuck in the fear and anxiety, we should channel that energy into something productive.
Exactly. Use that energy to educate yourself, make informed choices, and advocate for change. Don't let fear stop you. Let it fuel your actions.
That's such a good message.
Yeah.
Turn that anxiety into action. We're not powerless in this.
Yeah.
We have choices and we have voices.
And it's not just about us, it's about the future, protecting future generations. These forever chemicals, they can hang around in the environment for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So we're talking potential impacts on the health of our kids, our grandkids.
Yeah. It's a heavy thought. But it also kind of highlights why taking action now is so important. We're not just fighting for our own health, we're fighting for the health of those who come after us. Okay, so let's bring it back to where we started. I know there are people listening who are probably thinking, all right, I'm officially freaked out about my workout clothes. What's the takeaway here? Should we all be ditching our leggings, swearing off synthetic fabrics forever?
I don't think that's necessary, honestly. Remember, we're still learning about how PFAS exposure from clothing actually works. We don't have clear-cut answers yet on what's a safe level. It's more about being aware of the potential risks, making smart choices, and, like we've been talking about, pushing for change.
So it's not about living in fear, but more about being empowered to make choices that align with our values and, how much risk we're comfortable with.
Exactly. And it's about pushing for a system where we don't have to constantly be worried about these harmful chemicals hiding in the stuff we use every day. We deserve transparency, we deserve safe products, and we deserve a future where our health and the health of our planet are a priority.
I love that. This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me, I'll be honest. It's definitely concerning to learn how widespread PFAS really are, but it's also been encouraging to hear about all the progress that's being made. Regulations, companies taking responsibility, people becoming more aware. So to all our listeners out there, we say, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged. Don't be afraid to ask questions, demand transparency from the brands you support, and use your voice to advocate for change.
We all have a role to play in building a healthier future, whether it's choosing PFAS-free products, getting in touch with your elected officials, or supporting organizations that are working to fix this problem. Every action, big or small, makes a difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of PFAS. We hope you walk away feeling informed, empowered, and ready to take action. Until next time, stay healthy and stay curious.